Hi, I'm Nicholas Bustamante. I'm here with my group, Omish, Samuel, and Melanie, and today we'll be doing our comparative anatomy project. The animals we have chosen were frog and rat, which we did do the dissections on. Some names of the rat and frog. The taxonomic name for the rat would be Rattus norvegus, and then the kingdom would be animal for the rat. The phylum would be Corydate, and then the class would be mammal, and then order would be rodent, and then the family would be murids, and then for the frog, the taxonomic name would be Anura, and then the kingdom would be animal, the phylum would be Corydate, the class would be amphibian, the order would be Salientiae, and then the family would be Reindae. So some things about the rat and frog, their habitat for the rat would be in barns, farms, in like grass, or just like really just populated areas like cities. Their food chain would be more to the bottom, as they are likely to be eaten than to eat other animals. And then mating, they would mate like in certain positions. Their limbs would be rigored, and then they would give birth to live animals. And then for frogs, their habitat would be like watery areas like forests. Their food chain would be sort of in the middle because they do eat other animals, but they are also still going to be eaten. They're not at the top of the food chain. And then for mating, they fertilize eggs and they give birth to eggs, and those eggs would hatch later on. I'm also going to be talking about the digestive system. Um, some key components in the digestive system would be mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and the anus for the rat. So what happens with the rat is the rat would use their mouth to eat their food. They would chew with their teeth, and the saliva and the enzymes in their saliva would break down the food. They would then swallow it, which goes from the pharynx to the esophagus into the stomach. And in the stomach, the food is churned with muscles, which like make it into little balls, and is broken down with acid in the stomach. Then from there, it goes into the small and large intestine where nutrients are absorbed. Some also things to know is the pancreas helps with one of the nutrients, which is glucose. And what the pancreas does is it secretes insulin so that the glucose is turned into energy. And then whatever the nutrients that the animal does not need is going to come out through the anus. And then for the frog, it's pretty much the same thing: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and the anus. Same what happened here, but maybe.
All right, next we will be presenting the excretory and reproductive system, also known as the urogenital system for some organisms like the frog. The kidneys are the primary organ of the excretory system for the rat. Their main function in the body are to remove excess fluid and remove waste products in the form of urine. Their blood supply comes from the renal arteries and veins, which move directly to the aorta and vena cava. As waste is processed in the kidney, it is moved then from the bladder by way of the renal pelvis, which is the starting point of the ureters. These ureters move the urine to the bladder, and it is stored there until it is released through the urethra out of the body. As with many other organisms, the reproductive system in rats differs between males and females. The primary sex organs of the males are the testes. They supply the sperm, which is stored in the epididymis. From there, the sperm travels through the vas deferens to the urethra to await ejaculation. During ejaculation, the seminal vesicles release much of the fluid that make up semen and mixes with the sperm. The fluids mixed with the sperm contain proteins to help protect the sperm as it is released from the penis. In the females, they store their eggs inside of their ovaries. They travel through the oviduct and stick to the walls of the uterine horns. The semen enters through the vaginal opening and travels to meet the eggs in the uterine horns. This duplex uterus allows the rat to carry multiple embryos and deliver a litter of babies. After gestation, that is where these babies will exit out of the body through the vagina. Like the rat, the main organ that operates in the frog's excretory system is the kidney. The waste of the blood is filtered through the kidneys and travels through the ureters or urogenital duct in males into the cloaca. This is the main difference between the two excretory systems. The cloaca is an organ that is utilized for solid waste, liquid waste, and is essential for reproduction as well. It functions as an all-in-one organ and is the frog's only opening for each of these processes. In the males, the sperm are still produced by the testes and travels through the vas deferens into the urogenital duct. As the cloaca is the only opening for waste or sperm to leave through, that's also where the sperm will be stored as it is being released for the external fertilization that occurs with frog eggs. In the females, numerous eggs are produced by the ovary, which are transported through the oviduct into the uterus and are expelled through the cloaca.
Moving on to the respiratory system. So the structure of the respiratory system of the rat is very similar to us humans. It includes their nostrils, the larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. One of the minor differences is that they lack well-developed respiratory bronchioles like humans have. It is also very similar to the respiratory system of the frog, although there are slight variations. Unlike frogs, rat offspring start breathing air right after they are born. Moving on to the frog, frogs are actually amphibians, not mammals like the rats, so they do need moist environments to live. Frogs have lungs just like the rats, but they also have two other areas of gas exchange, which include the walls of the mouth, the inside of the mouth, and the skin. They have a laryngotracheal chamber which the air moves through, since they do not have an actual neck like the rat does. The lungs of the frog are far thinner than those of the rat. They are like balloons. Moving on to the circulatory system of both the rat and the frog. Just as humans, the rat has a closed circulatory system, which means that the blood stays inside the blood vessels and circulates throughout the body. The contraction of the right ventricle pushes the blood into the pulmonary artery and goes to the lungs where it gets oxygenated, and then it travels back through the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, from where it circulates again through the aorta and goes on to oxygenate the body. Frogs also have a closed circulatory system just like the rat, however, it is slightly variated. They have 3 chambers to the heart instead of 4 in mammals. In frogs, blood is driven into the right atrium of the heart by contraction of the sinus venosus, and it flows into the left atrium from the lungs. A wave of contraction spreads over the whole atrium and drives blood into the ventricle, where, although it stays separate, it sometimes will end up mixing.
One of the many parts of the nervous system is the brain. The rat's brain consists of the olfactory bulb, which is located at the top of the brain and is also the sensory area of the brain. Then is the cerebellum that maintains balance, the pineal gland that receives and conveys information about the light to dark cycle from the environment, the vermis that has the bodily structure, the C1 and C2 that gives head flexibility, and the cerebrum that coordinates movement and regulates temperature. The rat's spinal cord consists of 34 pairs of spinal nerves. 8 of those pairs are cervical, 13 are thoracic, 6 are lumbar, 4 are sacral, and 3 are caudal. Each nerve is formed by dorsal and ventral roots. The dorsal root is sensory and carries the impulses into the spinal cord. The ventral root carries most fibers away from the spinal cord, and the vasculature of spinal cord includes the median dorsal spinal artery and vein, 2 lateral spinal arteries, and a ventral median veins. The cranial nerves lead to the brain, neck, and trunk, also involved in many senses. This is the axial symmetry of the rat, which includes the skull, the cervical vertebrae, the forelimb, the sternum, the femurs, the pelvis, the sacrum, and many other parts. One reflexive reaction a rat has is an ACR, also known as an acoustic startle reflex. It is a survival mechanism of alarm which rapidly alerts the organism to a sudden loud auditory stimulus. The primary ACR circuit encompasses three ciliary connected structures, including the CRNs, the PNCs, and the motor neurons in the medulla and spinal cord. This is a frog's brain, which consists of the cerebellum that helps with coordination and balance, the cerebrum that responds to the environment, the olfactory lobe that gives frogs a sense of smell, the optic lobe that helps with vision, and the medulla oblongata that connects to the spinal cord. The spinal cord consists of outer white matter and inner gray matter. It is short, thick, and the size and the shape of a cylinder. Similar to the brain, the spinal cord is also surrounded by two meninges, pia mater and dura mater, that contains protective and nourishing fluid. The gray matter inside the spinal cord is produced at the corners into dorsal and ventral columns, while the white matter is divided by the gray matter into four zones, including the dorsal, the ventral, and two lateral funicus. It is also covered by two protective membranes. Unlike the rat, the frog has a bilateral symmetry that includes the interior, the ventral, the dorsal, and the tail. A bilateral symmetry means that when the animal is cut in half, two practically identical pieces are produced. Some structures that the frog and rat have in common are the olfactory lobe, the cerebellum, and the cerebrum. They also find similarities in their skins. Both of their skins are made up of two layers called the epidermis and the dermis. Although the dermis in the amphibians is very rich in capillaries because they breathe through their skin. And for the rat, the epidermis is in the upper layer and protects the animal's upper level of skin. Some unique features that the rats have is axial symmetry. And the frog's bilateral symmetry is very unique to them because they have skin in which they can breathe and rats do not. This is the frog and rat phylogenetic tree. It is no surprise that they have some similar traits in common since they're very close in the tree.
So why would these organisms evolve? At least for the rats, rodents are believed to have originated in Asia, and rats are believed to have evolved from Muridae. They are the largest rodent and mammal family, with holding 1,383 species of rodents. It can be theorized that Rattus rattus, which are black rats, and Rattus norvegicus, which are brown rats, grew to be larger and stronger than the Muridae to better survive in their move to Norway. Their further developed teeth and larger bodies opened up their available prey and made it easier for them to fend off predators. In the case of the frog, they evolved from lungfish. The development of fingers on their arms and the development of legs as well allowed them to seek food further away from the water than what they could have attained in being confined to the bodies of water that they resided in.